All right, joining us here in the Media Center is your funny car winner of the 65th Annual Lucas Oil NHRA Winternationals, Jack Beckman, who went 4:01.5 at 302 miles an hour to defeat Daniel Wilkerson in the final round and hand John Force Racing its 300th funny car win, second straight Pomona win for Jack, dating back to the finals last year, 36 in his career. Jack, we've talked a lot about just kind of the whole story of you coming in and how kind of surreal this has all been, and now you add yet another layer to this, getting the 300th win for JFR. Talk us through just how special this has been, this weekend, and this victory now.
So this is back-to-back Winternationals wins for me.
Right.
Well, one was back in 2020.
That's
then
right.
I took 4 years off, right, and came back here. It's kind of an odd way to do it, but the last 4 times I've been to Pomona, I've left with the trophy, and then back-to-back for Force Racing and the Peak car. I really thought Austin Prock, my teammate, was going to get win number 300 in funny car for John at Phoenix. I mean, that car had been amazing, and it's just been an odd start to the year for them. And we've been incredibly consistent. It just Gainesville was ultra tricky track conditions after the rain peeled everything up. Phoenix, we had the best car. We put a motor in that was down on power in the semifinals, and we came here, and I think we owned the place. We didn't qualify number 1 or 2 or 3. We qualified 4th, but we got qualifying points every single run. Every round of eliminations, we were first or second quickest out there. I thought we just kept making a statement. And the flawless part fell off a couple hundred feet out in the final round when the car shook the tires and knocked them loose. And that's where, as a driver, you've got to be ready to give one back to the team, because they'd given me everything all weekend long. And it felt good to be able to pedal the thing and drive around Dan and take it down there and not have the car blow up. And pretty cool when they hand you a trophy and your car is still intact.
It's super early in the season, but now you're the points leader, first points lead since the fall of 2020. Thoughts of a second championship?
Of course, yeah. I thought about that in the offseason. And I think anybody that says they don't count points, they're either bad at math or they're lying to you. We all count points. But there's no point in getting ahead of ourselves, and the countdown formats have made it very, very different. A lot of the crew chiefs have kind of changed the way they run the cars. It's not like baseball or football, where the regular season only gives you a record to make the playoffs, because they give these away every single race, and it means a lot. But there's some crew chiefs that would sacrifice a couple of these in the middle of the year to get a program that'll get them to the countdown. I think we've got the best of both worlds over there. I think with Tim Fabrizi and Danny Hood and Chris Cunningham, I think we got enough inventory of parts. I think when we do run out of a disc and have to phase a new one in, I don't think it's going to be a very big bump in the road. I think we'll use qualifying runs for that. In other words, if we've got a disc that we're going to have for 14 more runs, and we go to Vegas and we get in solid on Friday, we might throw the next on-deck one in there for Saturday for a couple runs, then go back to our original clutch pack, then the next race after we're in test, to the point where we've got enough good data that it should be seamless once we do that. I think we can run for the trophy every race and contend for the championship.
Jack, just thinking about the conversations we've had with Jimmy and Chris and Danny and those guys, and they revealed recently that the cars are not the same. Austin's car is off trying to figure out the next big thing, and Chris said flat out, like, we like tried and true what works, and that kind of benefits you, right? Like, you figure out they've got a program that works, they're going to stick with it, and we see it as the car goes down the racetrack. Can you talk a little bit about that, because people assume everything's the same?
Yeah, but by no means does that make Jimmy Prock's car a test car any more than Jimmy Prock's car has ever been a test car, and Jimmy Prock's car has kind of always been a test car, right? Jimmy has always marched to his own drummer. And Jimmy could go out there and set low ET of the world and show up with a new camshaft the next weekend. It's just his philosophy on racing. And Chris and he have worked together quite a bit. And it's an amalgam. You know, Danny had his background that he brought in here. Tim Fabrizi had his background. And they run things different, but they bounce ideas off of each other. So Jimmy's not a test car. Jimmy just continues to do Jimmy, and Chris is Chris. Chris went off into the dragster wars for a couple of years and was really successful tuning for Austin there. And I think that made him and Jimmy even tighter. See, they were tuners together on my car back at DSR, but I think tuning in cars in two different categories and bouncing ideas back and forth made them both maybe a half a notch better than that. So Jimmy is going to continue to try to set low ET every time he goes out there. But look at that Peak car. We're top 3 virtually every single time we go down the racetrack. So you can't say we're playing it conservative up there. The guys just have got a wealth of data to fall back on. They read the track well with the help of Lanny McGlizzy, and they make intelligent calls every single time we go up there. And the weird thing is, in the final round, you say, well, what should we have done different? And if you look at the tire tracks, the car looked fine until it didn't look fine. Like a lot of times you'll see it wallow in the tire and you say, well, it was weak, right? Just needed some more primary in it. Or sometimes you'll see this track's getting skinny. You're like, we had it too hopped up. It looked perfect until it didn't look perfect. And that's the nature of throwing 11,000 horsepower at concrete and asphalt. Every once in a while, something goes wrong out there.
And since you mentioned DSR and brought us back to that, which is kind of illuminating the fact that, Jimmy and Chris, but that organization versus the one you're now in. You spent a lot of years with Don, DSR. You won your championship there. Now you're at John Force Racing with John. There was a big rivalry between those two. How is the feeling of this organization different than what you experienced in the past?
Well, the similarity is both of them give you everything you need to win, right? Don hated excuses. Don't say I don't know, and don't give me an excuse. Go out there and win. And it was very much a business there. We had 8 nitro teams at one time, but for quite a few years we had 7, and they were run as 7 completely individual nitro teams. But you were absolutely allowed and encouraged to share data. John Force race cars, our car and Austin's, aren't the same parts, but we're highly encouraged to spend a lot of time together. And remember, anytime, the only way you could have cars run identical out there is if the same crew chief tuned both and cut the clutch inventory in half and you had twins driving the cars. Other than that, it's always going to be different in some way, shape, or form. But Forces is a little bit more like a family, and some days that's way better, and some days it's a little tougher.
Jack, just touching on this a little bit more, you win the Mission Challenge yesterday for the first time, so just a remarkable run. This car, John wins the Winternationals, in Phoenix, but this car in Pomona is technically 12-0, dating back to last year. And it's just remarkable. You step in and it's like the car, credit to you, credit to this team, hasn't skipped a beat and continues to just run flawlessly, consistently. To be a part of this, again, like how cool is this to just see the car performing like this and just you enjoying this whole process?
So the average fan, Josh, and you make a great point, would say, well, the car, look at the car. John's car wrecked.
Yeah.
That car was not salvageable.
Right.
The car I hopped into last year had never been down the racetrack. People say, well, you had good data. John and I weigh 20 pounds different, and we drive very differently. It was quicker for the first 60 feet with John driving than it was for me. And Cunningham said, don't change the way you drive, how you manipulate the clutch to keep heat out of it. He says, we're going to bring the clutch up to you. So by no means did they just plug me in and the car ran the same as it did with John. They adapted to what I was doing for driving, and you saw how that resulted last year. And now this is a brand new race car. Last year's car is upstairs as a ready-to-run spare. This car had never gone down the track before Bradenton, and look what they did here.
Just remarkable.
What they're doing is, I've driven some phenomenal race cars over the years. I have never driven a car with the run completion percentage that this thing has. And this is a new car last year. It picked up exactly where last year's car left off.
Yeah, remarkable run. Historic win for you. 300th funny car win for John Force Racing. Jack, congratulations.
Feels pretty good.
It feels pretty good.
Thanks,
you, sir.
guys.